I did the last podcast about the quarterback's move, and I said, never going to happen. Never going to happen. Don't even worry about it. Put myself out on the line there. It was, I felt pretty bold about it. Pretty obvious that they weren't going to move. But then some news started to hover around the situation, and I was like, I just started doing this thing. I'm going to have to eat some crow. But at least for the first part, it looks like I'm not going to, and that's with Wilson. Wilson is not going anywhere. We all know about the huge deal that was offered to Seattle. 3 firsts, a mid-round pick, and 2 players. They turned it down. They're not getting anything else. And we know, too, that since then, cap dropped $17 million. Seattle will be on the hook for $40 million, even if they trade him. So you're talking about a $57 million swing on the cap. He is not going anywhere. So I felt good about that. I don't have to eat crow on that one. I don't have to eat crow, and I'm very happy. But now we're going to see Wilson get some opportunities. They brought in some players. They brought in a decent tight end for him. They got Gabe Jackson, who's a very good tackle. They traded for him from the Raiders. So, I do believe that Wilson has a point. That offensive line at times over the years has been terrible. But a good point was raised a couple of weeks ago that Wilson is a little slow to deliver that ball, that a lot of his problems on that offensive line is because he's holding the ball too long and he's just not getting it out in rhythm. And he creates this schoolyard play where he's taking the hits and he's on the move a lot. And we'll see, though. I mean, Seattle has made some good moves, not great moves. Not great moves, but some good moves. So it's pretty clear he's not going anywhere. And we're going to get to see Wilson try to do something this season, I mean, he's been hovering around some playoff appearances, but it hasn't been the same since a couple of years ago when they made the Super Bowl, won the Super Bowl and then lost it. So that's interesting, but he's done. That's it. Maybe next year will be different, though, because they're not going to be on the hook for $40 million. So I could be inclined to agree that next year he could be moved. So we'll see how him and Carroll actually get along. That's going to be very, very interesting. But now back to Watson. This is where I was pretty confident he wasn't going anywhere, but some more news came out. And I was like, I'm going to have to come back and retract this. But then more news came out, and I started saying, no, it's definitely not going to happen. And then more news came back, and I was like a seesaw back and forth. So let's go over it. Watson was told he wasn't going to be traded. Texans had been resolute, adamant they're not going to move him. But you hear talks of him getting moved. And it seemed like, this is going to be a possibility. The Dolphins were involved. The Jets were possibly involved. A bunch of teams were involved. And now, recently you heard about the Patriots. But we all know now that there's been accusations against them. And I said, 1, that's nothing. 2, well, all right, maybe they're from the same masseuse Paul or they know each other, and this is not really founded on anything. But then yesterday, a third one came out. And today, 4 more. So he has a total of 7 suits, and the NFL is now investigating. So for me, that's pretty much lock, stock, and barrel that what team is going to fork over, 2 or 3 first-round picks, maybe a mid-round pick, and some players for a guy who's being investigated. Does this turn criminal at some point? We don't know. At the very least, you're looking at a suspension and this thing dragging out and bad publicity. Now, I saw on the herd that John McClain, he's a 30-year vet of covering the Texans. He said he's going to definitely, of Texas, he's going to be definitely moved. But at this point, I just don't see it. 7 lawsuits of sexual harassment in this day and age with social media. Wherever he's going to go, the team is going to get a huge, huge backlash. And even if it's somehow cleared down the road, I don't know. Does anyone want to bank all that capital on this situation? And if it's not cleared, or a couple are cleared, and he gets suspended, how long is the suspension? When's the suspension going to come around? Who knows? Now, there was a lot of talk about the Pats trading for him, and they would blow open, they would shock the world and trade for him. And Bill Belichick is crazy enough and has enough, capital as far as his accomplishments that he could maybe pull it off, but 7 lawsuits? So it seems to me that he ain't, and I honestly, I think that the Texans kind of knew this. You have to remember that these football organizations, they have James Bond on the payroll. They're tracking every one of their major players. They know the situation. They hear things way. They have contacts with politicians. They have contacts with the law enforcement. So you're telling me that they didn't know that this simmering of issues was rising up? I mean, what you have Tyrod Taylor. Why don't you just, okay, he's going to get suspended this year. Maybe, not next year or the year after, he can reclaim his character and he'll be a worthwhile tradable commodity, and they're just going to sit on it. So it seems like I don't think I'm going to have to eat crow on this one. We'll see. I feel bad. I hate to hear this kind of stuff happening to anybody. I hate to hear Watson being involved in this kind of stuff. For me, protecting women is like essential to being a man. So I hope somehow this is not true, because I'd hate to hear it, because it's just really like a low life thing. But we don't know. And so let's hope it's not true. And if it is, I hope he gets his due, So anyway, these big quarterbacks moves, they fizzled